Welcome back. You're still tuned in to News and Views. Myself, Salala Makudi. Our time is 8:36 Central African Time. And we're going to be moving on to a really, really interesting story. The Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, is, taking a strong stance when it comes to the NHI. They've taken to the streets this week, picketing outside the Constitutional Court of South Africa as a high stakes legal battle unfolds over the future of the country's healthcare system. Essentially, NHI, I think we all know about it, and there's a strong legal challenge on whether or not it should be passed and become the reality of what the provision of healthcare looks like in the country. And at the center of it, at the center of the controversy when it comes to the NHI, is the fact that it is signed into law by President Cyril Ramaphosa, but is facing really, really serious challenges from the Board of Healthcare funders. And COSATU says the NHI is the only push to equal healthcare, while critics argue that the system is unaffordable and it is flawed. And essentially, they're saying that we don't have the right systems, we don't have the right personnel to carry out such a, I don't know, a different, new, challenging, requirement, considering how our government officials have been failing with other aspects over the years. And we're going to be speaking now to Zanele Sabela, COSATU spokesperson, who's going to be giving us more insight on why they're so passionate about this, why they have their members out at the Constitutional Court, and she's joining us via our telephone lines. Zanele, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to News and Views. Really appreciate you giving us your time this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity and good morning.
Zanele, I think we'll jump right into it. Why was it so important? Why was it so imperative for COSATU to mobilize outside the Constitutional Court? What message are you hoping to send through those pickets?
So we have been behind the NHI for the longest time. I mean, this conversation about the NHI goes back about 20 years, even longer if possible. And it is time. The truth of the matter is we need a new health system. The one that we have is like two South Africas. It is one for the rich, where when you go to hospital, you're like going to a resort. You have your private room, and you're tended to your catered for hand and foot. And on the other end, you have very long queues, there aren't adequate beds, there's shortage of staff, there's no medicine. It is frankly a travesty to sit here 32 years into democracy and still see this. And is also quite shocking to see that there are other people who would rather keep us here instead of moving on. I mean, our constitution is all about transformation. We all know our history, where we come from, and there's no way that we sit back and watch this while people who have the money are taking government to court to make sure that this NHI doesn't come into effect.
But Zanele, how do we respond to those that are saying, why not fix what already exists? Why not fix the current healthcare system, the hospitals, the clinics, which have disintegrated? You have numbers of unemployed doctors. Some doctors are even moving to the private health sector, as you mentioned, because of the quality and the standard that, that aspect of our healthcare has positioned itself to be. How do you respond to that? The fact that government needs to fix what's already there, what's already existing, and then we can start having conversations around a wider national health insurance type of conversation.
So you see, the people that will say that are the people that are sitting pretty, are the people that actually have medical aid and can afford to go into private health care. And the problem with this is South Africa spends 8.5% of its GDP on health. And the bigger problem is that 51% of that goes to cater for 14% of the population. As much as we have private hospitals still get subsidized. And the 49% of the funding actually must now sort out the 86% of the population. Now, when you look at that, we are still in apartheid. It is, the scales are not balanced, and this is why we must change how we do things in this country. And also, people say that, why not fix what's already broken and move on? The thing about it is the NHI we're not gonna wake up tomorrow and say, now it's the NHI. No, it's a gradual process, and government realizes this. And actually, the act itself does say that it will be a gradual, programmatic, and it will be dependent on resources. How we start to change it, there will be now, if we start now, we are preparing for the NHI. It's not like we're going to wake up tomorrow and it's the NHI. So we need to start preparing for it. It will be gradual, it will be phase on phase, and it will be very dependent on resources. And so what the Board of Healthcare Funders is saying is that it is unaffordable, and government hasn't told them how much it will actually cost. The thing about it is, it's a road that we're going to have to travel. And where they are sitting now, they've gone and made their own little calculations, and they've decided that we can't afford it. But in their calculations, they don't make space for the fact that, as much as there's technology everywhere else, there's also technological advances in healthcare. Things, the easier the technology is and the better it makes things, the cheaper costs are. And so that's why government is saying we will have to take it phase by phase and walk the walk with it. It's not going to be something that will happen overnight.
Let's talk about the capacity to roll out NHI. I think you mentioned quite an important point, the fact that we're not going to wake up tomorrow and there's going to be universal healthcare. But the conversation around capacity of rolling it out, money, obviously, whether or not we can afford it, is one of them. But you touched on that point quite briefly. Do we have the capacity? Does government have the capacity to roll out such a reform like the NHI? Do we have the right people in the right departments that can be, tasked with that responsibility of rolling out NHI? Because we saw numerous times and times again in various departments in government. It's not a secret. We've been failed as South Africans on a lot of fronts. The workers themselves, members of COSATU, have been failed quite a lot of numbers by those that are in government in various departments, and NHI will present a different kind of challenge for them, and one they haven't encountered before. And judging by the track record, we don't know what the outcome might be.
And that's the thing. The thing about it is exactly that. When we say that, it will be gradual, that gradual includes putting the people in place that are going to run with it. Employing those doctors that you said, are unemployed and are going to the private sector. So one of the judges yesterday at the Constitutional Court asked a very pertinent question, because the Board of Healthcare Funders and everyone else who is challenging the national health insurance, they say that, no, we support universal health coverage. We support it. We're not against it. So the judge asked, if you are supportive of it, why not sit around the table and talk about it and help? Because they do have the capacity that you talk about, the expertise that they talk about. The problem here with the Board of Healthcare Funders and every other medical aid and the private hospitals, they are smiling all the way to the bank, and they're not willing to give that up. This is about profit. It's not about anything else. But the truth of the matter is, it's not sustainable that we can have only 14% of the population being catered for, and everyone else must now fend for themselves and do what needs to be done. So this is the thing. And if they care so much, and if they are not in opposition, why don't we think of this as a thing that We as a country. And that's the problem. The problem with apartheid is it has perpetuated this thing that we are two South Africas and it should
Mm,
stay the same. Because whenever there is something that can transform the society and take us forward and make us a progressive society, those who have don't want to let go. No, no, no. They say we must
mm,
continue to sort ourselves out. And that's not the way it should be. We should be able to sit around the table and talk about it and see how we can do. But this is just all about profit. It doesn't
mm,
matter what they say.
mm. Do you think another aspect would be the opposition to the NHI would essentially be a microcosmic of the broader South Africa, where there are those that want to continue perpetuating the inequalities that we are seeing in the country? I mean, it's a well-known fact that South Africa is one of the most unequal countries in the world, and healthcare is heads and shoulders above everything else when it comes to showing the stark difference between the haves and the have-nots. Is this a microcosmic of something greater, something bigger? The fact that those that still have the means, those that still have the money and the means of production want it to stay that way, and the provision of NHI would be the beginning of us seeing the leveling of the playing ground when it comes to other aspects of South African day-to-day life.
It is exactly that. It is exactly that. But the problem here, there's a fly in the ointment here, because you have seen that medical aid is getting more and more expensive every day. And a typical example is what we have seen with GEMS. GEMS is for state public servants. It was formed, it actually even says in its resolution that it was meant to provide affordable medical health cover for uh, for the public servants. And
Mm,
it wasn't meant to be a profit making entity. It was meant so that they could have this cover. But now we have seen how GEMS has now increased its members' contributions by 23% in 2 years, when the public servants have only received 5.5 salary increase last year, and this year they've received 4.4. Any way you
mm,
look at it, you can already see there's a big gap there. And that's the thing. The thing about it is, when this kind of thing keeps continuing, when the state meant public, like medical aid, is now going rogue on us, and the board wants to have 53 meetings per year, and every one of them is walking away with more than 1 million in board fees per year, then you'll start to see that this is unsustainable. So if we continue down the road, even the ones that have money to afford medical aid at this point in time, give it some time. This is unsustainable. They also won't be able to afford medical aid. Where do we end up then? Do we end up in the public service, where we all think, things should be better, when we could right now start to fix it and make sure that everyone, all of us, I mean, it's in the Constitution.
mm.
Yesterday in court, they were quoting Section 27 that says everyone has a right to access to health in this country. That's what the Constitution says. It's in the Bill of Rights. Why must others get it and others not get it?
There you have it. Zanele Sabela, COSATU spokesperson. Thank you so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate you giving us your time, and hope we chat again soon.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
There we go. And with that, we're going to take a quick break. News and views will continue after this.